You ain't in the church, bitch, you ain't a preacher. What up, what up? All we know is murder. Said all we know is hate. See, we put Aki in our cup. Smoke young dead niggas in our blunts. Dear Mr. Willie, I'm a single mom and also independent. Plus we understand, but he just be offended. Talk about some compromise. What up, what up? Good morning. Black man on YouTube and Facebook. I'm a viewer, I'm a Christian. Fuck with all your knowledge, except about religion. See, it's only one God. What up? Any other Christians. All my YouTube people, what up? Suggest his permission. Dear Mr. Willie, it's a real name Willie. Anyway, this internet silly. I feel you be talking about that shit we be missing. And know all these comments, keep knowing what you vision. They don't know timing, plus they close-minded. They just wanna rap, niggas just rhyming. Niggas talk religion, they ain't even searching. Talk about them past. Don't make me going on them churches. Look, I'm not shorty, but she don't understand it. Shooting niggas to the 40. The goals to be organic. What up, what up? You on this planet goes to be organic. It's only one of you on this planet goes to be organic. It's only one of you on this planet goes to be organic. It's only one of you on this planet.
I got here right on time. I took my time, won't let them rush me. Everything is fine, long as nobody try to touch me. Doing what I do the way I do is why they love me. Gotta thank God and the stars that's above me. Day I'm feeling lovely, later on I feel amazing. Bitch, I ain't the nigga that you easily replace me. Hit a J and go to space, these niggas think I'm Daisy. Really, I'm ignoring all these pussy niggas hate. Sometimes I gotta step away, gotta make my way to home.
What up, what up, what up? Good morning, good morning. This morning we're gonna talk about a couple topics. We're gonna be talking about the truth about dinosaurs, because there's something I was asked about that I was supposed to do a minute ago. Because as smart as we think we are, and as much as they taught us about dinosaurs and shit in school, it is all lies, just like our history and most of the things they taught us, right? We're gonna talk about elongated skulls. This morning I got up and I shared a post, which the people on Facebook will be able to see when I'm sharing the video and interact. The people on YouTube can hear the audio and be able to interact in the chat if that's how you interact with me. And this is what we're going to touch. And then my last thing, which is Ivan Van Sertima. And the reason being, when we talk about the elongated skulls, this goes back. So this morning I made a post about elongated skulls. I start here. And the elongated skull comment was showing these skulls. And they tell us on TV about these elongated skulls being alien extraterrestrial. But it's misinformation in some sense. Like, I won't say that it has no origin of truth, but nothing like how they're marketing it. If you learn about all the ancient cultures around the planet of brown people, they had elongated heads. So we're going to start in this area this morning. Right? Hold on, y'all. Good morning, good morning. I'm going to tag more people. But we're going to start in this video section this morning. Let's go. Get off this screen. Good morning to everybody. Now, this is what we're talking about, the elongated skulls. So the conversation this morning was started because I shared a post and it was talking about elongated skulls and they keep comparing it to extraterrestrials. Now, when we watch TV and when we look at stuff, which is when just watching TV shows and looking at stuff on Gia or looking at these are not, it's not the same as actually going to look and to find your information. Sorry, y'all think I was blocking the mic. It's not the same as looking to find information and reading and doing research and digging from people who are really in this field, because the TV shows could be biased or could prove other information. It depends on what they're marketing and what they're trying to sell or just ratings. So a lot of people will talk about, like, you know, these are the kids of the fallen, the Nephilims. Some people will say, well, this is aliens. It's proved that the Egyptians or the people, the first rulers, they want black people. It couldn't have been the slaves. So let's hear this breakdown by this guy. This is only 5 minutes.
One of the things that we know about King Tut was that he had a elongated head. One of the things that we know about King Tut was that he had a elongated head that looks something like this. And I'm going to show you an actual skull of the actual King Tut, and you'll see that this was in fact
all my YouTube people, what's up? Y'all can't see it,
now,
but y'all can hear
so-called
it.
scholars have made some embarrassingly stupid remarks in the past about the shape of King Tut's head. There are a lot of artifacts that depict his head shaped like this, and they would suggest that somehow that is representative of spirituality or something like that. But the fact of the matter is, that's actually what his head looked like, and I'm going to show you why. And the shape of his head and many others within the Egyptian kingdom also
see me looking down, I'm tagging
evidence as to who the Egyptians actually were and are. And just for comic relief, I'm going to show you some of the stupidity and nonsense that's out there. Here's another image. Let's read what it says. This plate called the Lalabaf plate is a 12,000-year-old stone dish found in Nepal. It clearly shows a disc-shaped UFO. There's also a figure on the disc looking remarkably similar to it. Sorry, wrong caption. This is a photo of Nefertiti, the goddess who lived in ancient Egypt. Notice this goddess's head. Her skull is extremely elongated. This would mean her brain would be much larger than a normal human's. Are you sure about that? This would mean...
That's the argument that you're going to get from Gia and all of this stuff, everybody writing on the post. Oh, well, their skulls are bigger, so that means their brain had to be bigger. He's saying it's not true. They're saying that that's what makes it alien because their brain's bigger. I'm saying, and what I've always said was that the body grows, right? So what make you think that the brain and the skull doesn't? See, it's not extraterrestrial. Every ancient culture on planet Earth, they didn't only leave the riddle, they left the tools that they used to do the binding of the skulls with.
That her brain is much larger than a normal human's. Okay, let's see if you maintain that position once I show you the origin of this. First of all, let's look at this page. Do aliens exist? Proof of alien life. So basically they're saying that the shape of this head would suggest that she and the other Egyptians who had a head shape like that were actually aliens. That's basically what they're saying. So what I'm going to do next is show you some other Egyptians who depicted this elongated head. This is an image of Princess Armana, who also had the same elongated head. Here we have an image of Nefertiti with the elongated head. And then we have another elongated head here, Princess Armana. And here, taken from the Egyptian tombs, we have an image of Smenkhkab and Meritaten. This is found in the Staatskunst Museum in Berlin. Look at the elongated head. Here's another image of Tutankhamun, and his elongated head is the reason that he has this headdress that is as large as it is. Here's a bust of the young Tutankhamun with his elongated head again. Now, this is a headdress. Obviously, a normal head would be shaped about like this. So his head goes all the way to the back. That would be the shape of his head. Here we have another image with the elongated head, and the children also have the elongated heads.
So he's going through right now, just for our people on YouTube, what the point he's making, and for my people on Facebook, the point he's making is that they're making it seem like it's a rarity. You seeing that he's showing you different times of Egypt, and I want y'all to pay attention to what these people look like. See that corner? Different times of these periods where different rulers had these elongated skulls.
That's
not aliens,
by the way. Here we have Tutankhamun again. It's not as obvious, but there you have his elongated head. And there it is again. Underneath all of this is the elongated head. Here we have the actual Tutankhamun's mummified head showing the elongation. And there it is again. This is the actual mummy. Now that we've established that many of the Egyptians have this elongated head, let's take a look at some more elongated heads and what culture this may be indigenous to. There's an elongated head. There is another elongated head. And here is another. Here is another elongated head. The mother also has an elongated head, as does this woman here. Now, these are not coincidences.
So the daughters, notice the head on the daughters, and it's the elongated head. Well, many Europeans said that that elongated head was a deformity. But when we look at the sister from Zaire, you see she has the same shape in her head.
See, my point is, when a lot of people this morning who on the thing, see, we got a lot of misinformation from religion, from TV, and not actually research facts. So as you hear the lady scholar in the back saying, see, the Europeans, because that's who controlled the information after we was conquered. They said that the elongated skull was a deformity, whether if it was from mixing with aliens or something being wrong, when it wasn't. It was actually the standard of beauty in Africa.
Back to the daughters of Akhenaten.
So here we got Akhenat's daughter. And so we got this queen over here from the Mash-Bitu tribe out of Central Africa. Look it up. And you see it right there. And you see the rap, this rap. I don't know if this here, you see the queen. This is Akhenaten. This is Tutankhamun.
Now the point now, because that was a short video. What he was saying was there's these wraps, and these wraps that they put on these babies' heads would push the skull. Just like there's these tools that they also use too. It's just like how a mother shape her head today. And the point that he was making is that it's not extraterrestrial. Now I'm not going to spend that long on this subject because it's something I think people should dig into and try to understand. Right? My second topic this morning, which is going to have a lot of people shocked, is the truth about dinosaurs. Now I want everybody here to listen.
In 1908 in Montana, paleontologists uncovered this: the remains of a sharp-toothed carnivorous dinosaur. At the time, it was the largest one ever discovered. They called it Tyrannosaurus rex. Today, it's mounted here. Well, some of it is, because they didn't find a full dinosaur in 1908. What they found was the skull, most of the tail, the rib cage, pelvis, and most of the vertebrae. But the rest of what you're seeing here, it's man-made. And that's
so from the jump, they've never found. When I said people be thinking I'd be lying, I told you they've never found one dinosaur from his head to the back of his tail. Not one. Listen to what they said.
Today, it's mounted here. Well, some of it is, because they didn't find a full dinosaur in 1908. What they found was the skull, most of the tail, the rib cage, pelvis, and most of the vertebrae. But the rest of what you're seeing here, it's man-made. And that's true for most dinosaur exhibits. When paleontologists uncover the bones of a dinosaur, they...
Did y'all peep when they said everything that was man-made, the head was included? Everything red, right? They said they found the head, but it wasn't that. Everything red, the real skull is down there.
Because they didn't find a full dinosaur in 1908. What they found was the skull, most of the tail, the rib cage, pelvis, and most of the vertebrae. But the rest of what you're seeing here, it's man-made. And that's true for most dinosaur exhibits. When paleontologists uncover the bones of a dinosaur, they usually only find part of it, leaving them with a prehistoric puzzle full of missing pieces. So, how did they fill in the blanks? When we first started mounting dinosaurs in the 1900s, researchers had to make a lot of educated guesses. The first step was to get the bones they did have in the right places. And one thing that helped is to look at animals that exist now.
We can just look at this Tyrannosaurus rex and we can see a lot of characteristics on it that are present in, like, chickens, for instance.
Dr. Mark Norell runs the paleontology division at the American Museum of Natural History.
If you look at the feet, it has 3 primary toes that all face forward. It has an S-shaped neck. It carries its backbone parallel to the ground.
And from there, they had to start filling in the missing pieces. For this T-Rex, both hind limbs...
So, but where did you get the idea of the feet if you never found any?
And both front limbs were missing. But judging by the skeleton, researchers determined it was closely related to an Allosaurus. So an artist was commissioned to hand carve the missing pieces, using the Allosaurus skeleton as a reference. Years later, they'd be replaced by replicas of real T-Rex bones. It turned out that T-Rex feet do look a lot like Allosaurus feet. But there were other times this kind of guesswork didn't work out so well. This long-necked dinosaur is called an apap.
Good morning. Good morning.
Grand Rising.
I wanted you to be in. Yeah, I wanted you to be in to give feedback on a lot of the stuff. But yeah, we on the truth about dinosaurs right now, which is bugged out.
Yeah, no, I tell my son this all the time. Yeah, he never believes me. I hate that damn school he goes to. But I always tell him, I'm like, listen, all of this is theoretical. They don't know what color these dinosaurs were, if they were dinosaurs. They don't know if they had feathers. They don't know what color they are.
They don't know if they was from here. They don't know if they was even from Earth.
Exactly. For all we know, we could be looking at a rhino or an elephant.
Yeah.
How the fuck do they know? They don't know.
They don't. And if you heard what he just said, it just said that so they looked at other animals, but remember, they showed us the T-Rex, but they didn't, that wasn't the real head. They didn't have the feet. So how did they come up with the 3 prongs that they're talking about right now? And they looking at animals, but even the animal, the chicken, for what they found, it wasn't really the same. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And now if you really look at it, right? Like if you go back to that still with the legs,
Okay.
doesn't that almost look like frog legs?
Hold on. This one?
Right. Look at it. That looks like an oversized frog leg. It kind of reminds me of the first newer version of the Jurassic World. And the owner is talking to the Asian guy, and he said, well, we've always used other animals to connect into the missing genomes of these animals.
Right.
They were telling us literally right there that they don't know shit.
Yeah, that's the reason why they can't control them, because they putting in it's almost sick, but this is everything. You know what I mean? It's crazy. Let me go back. We'll play some more.
And that's true for most dinosaur exhibits. When paleontologists uncover the bones of a dinosaur, they usually only find part of it, leaving them with a prehistoric puzzle full of missing pieces. So, how did they fill in the blanks? When we first started mounting dinosaurs in the 1900s, researchers had to make a lot of educated guesses. The first step was to get the bones they did have in the right places. And one thing that helped is to look at animals that exist now.
We can just look at this Tyrannosaurus rex and we can see a lot of characteristics on it that are present in like chickens, for instance.
Dr. Mark Norrell runs the paleontology division at the American Museum of Natural History.
Makes no sense.
Feet, it has 3 primary toes that all face forward. It has an S-shaped neck. It carries its backbone parallel.
Wait, though. Is that even similar?
Hell no. That bird has an S shape, and this one here is like
A V.
right.
Like where, like they're looking at, you see the line they're drawing?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not even the same.
At all.
One looks like a wavelength, and the other one is like it's in a completely different angle.
I feel like they have to make it seem like it's a reptile because they're claiming that it laid eggs. So they have to like keep that in the same family. So technically, a bird is a reptile.
Yeah, I can understand that. Still weird though for them to be, but the way they taught us in school was if they knew.
Oh yeah.
Like they test and quiz us on this, and if we got the wrong answers, as if they had them.
Exactly. That's what I was going to write in here before you had added me to this. I was literally about to say that. So in other words, they're teaching lies, and if you answer this shit wrong, you're wrong, but they're fucking wrong.
Right.
Crazy.
No, it is.
It carries its backbone parallel to the ground.
And from there, they had to start filling in the missing pieces. For this T-Rex, both hind limbs and both front limbs were missing. But judging by the skeleton, researchers determined it was closely related to an Allosaurus. So an artist was commissioned to hand carve the missing pieces, using the Allosaurus skeleton as a reference. Years later, they'd be replaced by replicas of real T-Rex bones. It turned out that T-Rex feet do look a lot like Allosaurus feet. But there were other times this kind of guesswork didn't.
But how did they know? Because they didn't. Okay, if you found these feet in China, but these bones were in South America, how did you just put these bones with this? They didn't explain how they said, oh, it turns out that these feet are right. How?
I think they're making all this up. Like, it's all made up.
You get what I'm saying? They didn't prove to us that those feet would belong to the T-Rex.
Exactly. Now check this out, right? Now they claim, I watch a lot of forensic files, and they claim that they can take the DNA from the bone marrow. Is there any way that they could have possibly taken bone marrow or DNA extracted from the bone to maybe like see if it possibly was a match that way? That's the only thing I can think of.
Possibly, because that would be smart, because they would be able to tell what I mean, they can do a lot. We know they can do a lot with bones because what they found out about the original people. So they're definitely hiding. And they also, like, you got to be in a certain a group to talk about this. But it just doesn't, like you said, it just doesn't sit well. You get what I'm saying? It don't sit well at all.
Oh, no. I mean, listen here. I don't take nothing a white man say for face value anyhow. Him or his counterparts.
Yeah. Everything they taught us was wrong.
Exactly. Everything.
I want to see what else they're going to say. What else crazy shit they're going to say.
Work out so well. This long-necked dinosaur is called an Apatosaurus, but for a long time, we called it something else. When researchers originally discovered it, it was missing its skull, so they made it one. But they made the skull based on some bad assumptions.
They made the skull look like a Camarasaurus, which is a very different group of dinosaurs. So it has a very high dome skull.
So they put the Camarasaurus skull on the Apatosaurus body and gave the new dinosaur a name, Brontosaurus.
So they just making up shit.
Oh, this is crazy.
They just making up shit. Because I was about to say that. Well, how the hell they get on these different types of species and
yo, they just said that they found, first of all, they said they found the bones, but the only thing they found was from here to here, right? Didn't they just show us that? This neck area. And then they said they created a head because they didn't show the rest of the body. Then they said that they made a head fit from another type of dinosaur. Now it makes sense. About 7 years ago, I was sitting there watching the new like dinosaur, like I forgot what it was, like some new science or show about a dinosaur, and it wasn't called a Bronchiosaurus no more. It wasn't called a Bronchiosaurus, and now there's like 50 new dinosaurs that we never heard of.
Yo, this is some real mad scientist evil shit if you really think about it. Really think about it. Think about how many people have a job based on a lie.
Yeah.
How many millions of dollars that they have put people in debt for school, learning this shit, going to college, and all of this shit is a lie. And I guess the people can't complain about the shit being a lie because they're now indoctrinated in the bullshit.
And they running around in a society that basically wants that to be the norm.
Very good, honey. That's crazy.
But that's bullshit.
The error was finally corrected in the 1970s.
What'd you say?
No, I was just saying that's some crazy shit. Like it makes you wonder about other things too.
That's why we got to stay on it. You know what I'm saying? That's the reason why we got to break it down. Damn, it don't even look like it fit.
Damn, now what is that? They don't have that in the Museum of Natural
Look at the teeth. This was in the museum.
Not anymore. I was just there this summer. That one's not there.
No, they took it down.
Yeah, I was about to say.
The error was finally corrected in the 1970s. That's what it said.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That is.
The skull was replaced with a new, more accurate version, and Brontosaurus was renamed Apatosaurus. But today, I can confidently walk you through the fossil hall in a museum and say these skeletons are 99 to 100% accurate, because designing exhibits now, it has very little to do with guesswork. Today, the field of paleontology has exploded to the point where we're uncovering almost one new dinosaur species a week.
Today, there's more dinosaur paleontologists than there ever have been. There's more dinosaurs being discovered than there have been at a quicker rate each year.
And with more dinosaurs comes more accurate exhibits. While we still haven't found a fully intact T-Rex, we now have the information to build one.
When I first got my job here 30 years ago, there was about 10 T-Rexes now, and now there's 46. So if we just put all those together, we know what the whole skeleton will look like.
So this T-Rex is ultimately kind of a Frankenstein monster. The pieces used to complete it were copied from various other T-Rexes.
But hold up, though. Just like animals, I know animals that's the same species but completely different. Like there's bees, but they got different body parts, like bigger stingers, different colors. Like the African bee is huge, but it's friendly. The European bee is short and aggressive. They bred those together and made that killer bee, because the African bee travels in packs, but it's friendly. It's only going to play defense. The European bee is very aggressive and short. And it's crazy because how much it has to do with history of the people from those areas too. And they bred them together and made the killer bees. So now they were big, aggressive, and they had pack mentality. And that's where the killer bees come from. They was breeding them and then they got out.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I think I'd do a special on that. But you get what I'm saying though, because they just said they could put them all together, but there could be I can show you different types of dogs and they're not all the same.
That's true.
So we just take different bones. I mean, we can get I guess. I don't know.
This is just another way.
Huh?
This is another way of the white man playing God, because he can't create. He doesn't have like any spiritual connection to this realm. So this is his way of creating something and being able to exploit it and say that it's truth, because he has no truth other than the fucked up shit that he's done on here. That's in a negative light.
Yeah, his power to say that what is being in control. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Look at this. This body proportion doesn't even look right.
It doesn't. Like, how in the world did those little ass legs was able to carry around that big ass body?
That the proportion has to be wrong. His stomach would have had to have been more narrow to lift up. Why would he run why would he run like he's crawling? And what the fuck is that?
I don't know. That's a really good question.
That's crazy.
And finally, in special cases like...
What'd you say?
I was hearing a good joke. I was like, I think that's where those doctors had gotten those BBLs from.
Oh, taking body parts and putting them other places? Yeah, for real. For real. This just doesn't, it look like they put this doesn't look accurate at all. I wouldn't be convinced. Because it would make no sense to have a stomach that big unless you're swallowing your prey whole. Then why would you have teeth like that?
Sue, an exceptionally large T-Rex on display in the Field Museum, researchers use computers to scan and mirror limbs. As in, if they have the left leg, they essentially flip it to create the right leg of the same size. It's efficient and precise work. In other words, it's highly unlikely you'll stumble across a dinosaur with the wrong head today. Because even though dinosaur skeletons don't show up in one piece, there's no longer a lot of mystery around how they're supposed to look. Take a look at Norrell's newest exhibit at the Museum of Natural History, and you can see that today, dinosaur researchers have moved on from the skeleton to asking other questions about T-Rex. How did it move? How did it grow? How did it live?
Now we work with everything from neurobiologists to material scientists to...
Why would a dinosaur need an overbite? What would it function him on eating anything? You know what I'm saying?
No, I do. It's just
what would it function? So they said that they would. So if they found the right leg, they would flip the image and make a left leg. Okay. So if they found the bottom of the mouth, they would flip the image and basically make it, and that's how they would come up with their creation of what the top of the head looked like. But my question is, this should not be invested in as much, and it shouldn't be a respected science, because before we invest and make college about this dumb shit, how about, no, and not calling it dumb, but this way they're doing it is dumb. How about we find one whole skeleton first? Like, we're not investigating human skeletons because we found a tooth, a toenail, and a fingernail.
Like I said, this has to be a way for them to show that they had some type of scientific, like, plight. Because, I mean, again, how many, like, out of all the things that our ancestors left, how come they never really left nothing about no damn dinosaur?
That's true. I think they left more shit about dragons.
Exactly. But like I said, the white man got a complex, a bad one.
He like to tell us what it is without proving it.
Because, I mean, that shit right there look like a big-ass ostrich.
That's it.
Like, seriously. But if you notice now, most of that shit is CGI. So,
when you say CGI, what you mean?
Meaning, like, that's a computer. Like, how can I explain it? Like, they don't really have nothing. Yes, baby, I put the cheese in. Give me the avocado over there. Sorry, Monet babies.
It's all good.
But meaning, like, that shit is just all fake. It's just all to, like, appeal to our imagination.
Yeah.
And now that, yes, baby, it's right. And the fact that now we can't, like, how can I explain it? Like, everything is CGI. Like, everything is to appeal to our imagination because they fucked us up so well from childhood that, you know, it's appealing for us to see something that looks real that's not really real.
Right.
And for us to go at it as it is.
The imagination.
Exactly.
Oh, no, this is about at the end. Let me run it.
How did it grow? How did it live?
Now we work with everything from neurobiologists to material scientists to engineers, just to do some of the work on these things. And that's pretty much the new thing. I mean, 30 years ago, that really wouldn't have happened.
In this case, Norell and his team have reconstructed full models of the enormous predator that are more lifelike than ever before. So why are we even piecing together skeletons anymore? Why not just display what's actually found? Paleontologists say that it's because exhibits aren't just about boasting discoveries.
When you make an exhibit, you have to tell a story.
And that story isn't about...
Hey, they just told us the truth right there. He just said it. He just said it. Because they're selling us a story, not a facts. This is how they get their money. I can't believe he just said that. Hold on.
An exhibit, you have to tell a story.
Just say that it's because exhibits aren't just about boasting discoveries.
When you make an exhibit, you have to tell a story.
And that story isn't about how humans found some fossils in 1908. It's the story of a living animal that walked the earth millions of years before us. In this video, I briefly...
They gave us no evidence of why. So why do you think they came from millions of years ago? Why couldn't they have been from 20,000 years ago? They didn't explain it.
Because remember now, they found a whole skeleton. What they call her, Lucy?
Yeah.
She's supposed to be like the oldest in the world.
Yeah, in Ethiopia.
Right. So shit, if that's the case, she should apparently have been walking amongst the dinosaurs, right?
Yeah. That's what they say. But see, they would try to say she a monkey, but she's a woman. You know what I'm saying? And going back, that's what I was saying earlier. And I believe her skull probably was elongated too.
That's cheesy. I'm sorry, what did you say?
I was saying they were trying to say, some people try to say she a monkey, but she's not a monkey, she's a human.
Oh, I've never read that. Even when I was first introduced to her at school, they said she was a woman.
Right, she was. when they be showing the diagrams, they show her as a cave woman. She wasn't a cave woman. She didn't live in a cave. Like the way.
It's hard to believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
That people who are living in a climate that's so hot, right? That has food growing, water,
right.
like all of this shit. Why the fuck would I stay in a cave?
Right. That's what.
It doesn't make any sense.
That,
I don't even understand how
they came up with it.
Right.
Well, no, Dr. Ben calls it a pick a fruit theory. I remember Dr. Ben, it was the pick a fruit theory. He was saying that people in warm climates, they didn't have to struggle for food and live in caves. It was growing on trees. You know what I mean? And then the people that was in cold climates or in hostile environments, they had to live in these areas for warmth or protection. So that was the difference.
Right.
But I agree. This is now. I always like to go back to a lot of the sources that I love the most. I'm not one of I like to show the sources, but this is Ivan Sertima, and what we're gonna talk about, and I know you'll love this, is African science. I always listen to like the first 2-3 minutes and be like, yeah, this is it. So it's an honest review. But Ivan Sertima, he's responsible for a lot of the progress we've made in information today, like him, Dr. Ben. And a couple of the other guys. These were the scholars that really pushed culture forward. And so we're going to talk about African science.
Science of the Moors. Who are the Moors? This is one of the most difficult of historical questions, and in fact, this is the most neglected chapter in Black history. When the generals were surrendering, the Moorish generals were surrendering in 1492, the very year Columbus sailed to the Caribbean, a painting was drawn of these generals. These were the Almohade generals. Almohade, the fourth of the last of 4 dynasties in Spain, had come to an end, had come to grief, in fact, in their last stronghold, Granada. And when the Castilian Spanish were defeating the Moors, a painting was done of the defeat, and there were Black generals surrendering. What were they surrendering if they were not in charge? The story of the Moors, however, is extremely complex. But before I begin to talk about it, I just want to say something that fills me at the moment. Because one of the things that I remember is the way I felt after I finished writing They Came Before Columbus. I had spent 7 years, and even though I was teaching, moving about, etc., I literally lived in that book. I lived in my head for 7 years. And coming out of it was very strange to me because I was looking at people differently. I was looking at a great lot of things differently. And I was not surprised that I was attacked. And I responded with great force. I don't know where my attackers are now. But one thing...
And just to stop it real quick, what he's expressing is that he wrote many books, some of the most prevalent books of our times in our history. And he realized after he wrote the books about the Moors and the books about other history, he got a lot of pushback for it. Like, how it's wrong, how dare you? And this is what he's expressing.
That struck me with tremendous force was the feeling of absolute loneliness. I knew very few of the people here. I did not know much about. I never met Ben Yochanan. I had met, I think, John Clark. I never met Chancellor Williams. I had read his work, etc. But I had lived in isolation. Let
me stop right here real quick. I was talking to my mother last night. My mother is a college graduate. Oh, she was big on education. My mom was saying that if you went to a Black college, you had to read The Destruction of the Black Civilization. And that's what he mean. He said he never got to meet Dr. Ben. That's the first Black Egyptologist. That's when he's saying when he wrote the first book, he had all his knowledge, but he had never met these other scholars. So we feel alone. And I can relate to that. When you start learning, you go speak, kind of get rejected. You be in a lone space until you find out that there's other people like you that you can extend with, like Kalia, who I'm on the live with right now.
Hell yeah. When I started this journey too with Dr. Ivan Sertima, John Clark, Dr. Dinosaurs, my family said I was fucking preaching.
Right.
And they didn't want to hear shit I had to say.
because they was indoctrinated. And the first thing we did was take the knowledge home, right? And got rejected.
Can you believe this? We've been going to school, learning all this shit. It's all bullshit.
But see, they was at the black colleges, and some of them taught at the white schools, because they was had him and Dr. Ben was all over the Harvards and Yales in Europe, right? Because they love the information.
Those are the schools that's actually teaching the real information. It's amazing how you gotta pay so much money to get real information. The shit that they learn at these schools is done.
True. And we get it. That's why I learned how to use. People don't understand how to use the internet. We sit here watching college courses. You can educate yourself in a way if you choose to listen and be open-minded. So that's why I love.
Do you have any kids that are like in school, right?
It's in school?
Right, and they may have like tablets or
yeah. Yeah, I do.
Some type of like computer or something.
Yeah.
They're not teaching them how to use that shit properly.
Yeah, I noticed that too, because I was in there talking to him about the computer.
Yeah, like my son, he asked me a question about a schoolwork. I said, bro, you're sitting in front of the computer. Ask the computer. You got God right in front of you.
Right, but I think they be locking them out of certain things like Google because of what the potential is at a certain age.
I don't know, but I knew at his age, I knew how to. We learn that.
Yeah, but they started us young too. They make it seem like the kids now were the first generation. We were the kids in the middle, so we know how to use the technology, but we also know how to not use the technology. We know what it was like when the technology wasn't dominant.
Right.
You know what I mean? Let me keep going. But yeah, if you want to, just let me know when you want to tap in.
To do my work, I lived in total isolation. I had a habit from early of cutting myself off for years without seeing anyone. And that is what I did. After these years, these 12 years since they came before Columbus, one of the things I can say is that we are not alone anymore. What we have now is a crusade. This is not the lonely struggle it was. We have a crusade. We have a tremendous body of people all over the country who are moving in a certain direction. I traveled quite a lot. In February alone, I was in 18 states. And one goes before many audiences, all types of audiences. I was a keynote speaker, for example, at NASA a few weeks ago, where I had to speak before the space scientists, both white and black space scientists. And they were very worried about the question of the survival of the space program and the survival of sophisticated science in this country, because we are in a very desperate state where we are not producing enough scientists. And the head of the space program was pointing out that in the 21st century, we have to make a tremendous appeal to blacks and Hispanics, because if we cannot recruit them into the field of science, we will not be able to maintain the level we have maintained before. And in fact, so serious is this problem that we're trying to build smart computers that would crystallize the genius of those great scientists that are likely to die and retire within the next few years. And we hope that the computers will be smart enough to have the insights of these great scientists. I don't think that will happen. So that we have got to realize that we have got to become aware of how important it is. We are living in a very different world. We are living in a world where there are more computers than people. That point was reached in 1982 when Bell Labs reported.
How you feel about that? It's more computers than people. So we already losing the war against machines and don't even know it.
But check this out. Also, though, those machines are only as smart as the people that created them. So, like, for example,
except for them AIs, it's a few AIs that think on their own.
Right, but they can only think based off the information that was given to them.
Well, not that did you see my live about that computer where that guy got fired a few months ago for saying that the AI that works at Google is living? because he sat down and interviewed it in the way it described itself. And like I know for a fact there's 2 AIs that have citizenship and walking around in 2 different countries.
I know that I've seen the girl one.
I think it's a boy one.
I haven't seen the other one.
It's a boy. Now you right about it. That's what I was saying. But what I've learned is that, okay, and I'll say my opinion from my reading. I think that the technology existed a way long ago, that even like our ancestors had it. Now, when they enslaved us, that's why they say the world fell back in darkness. And now they're redefining and using this stuff. But I think that this technology could be older than our solar system. The only thing it had to do, in my opinion, was to crash here and wait for somebody to use it. And this technology will teach you everything about a people. And we integrated in all of our phones, all of our schools, all of our jobs, right? So every day, this technology has learned and learning us. So it's created its own brain. Like the web is like a brain. And now, like with these computers and with the new technology, they gave the computers the ability to make their own decisions off of what they learn.
Right, but now check this out. If you got these evil bastards controlling exactly what it is that the computer learns, the computer itself is limited. Like, for example.
That's true.
I was, in the morning when we wake up, you know, I have an Alexa in here. And she gives us a history tip of the day. Now, she gives all these facts about Europeans, about so-called Jewish people. Ask her anything about what happened in Black history today, right? Like you'd be like, all right, it's what, December 20th. Alexa, what happened in Black history today? She will literally read you some type of bullshit script about Black history is basically a month in February where people of Afrocentric culture celebrate. It's no fucking facts. You ask her anything about what happened in 1912, the burning summer or the bleeding summer. She don't really have no facts to tell you. So it just goes to show that what this computer knows is based off of the racist ideologies and theologies of the European, the people who are in control.
True. But okay, so what about the billionaires that are not connected? Like, let's say Elon Musk AI. So, because I agree with you, but I've seen so much that I know, like, yes, that's completely true. So most of the computers are, but what about the computers? Because we always have to realize they say cyberspace. They say the first extraterrestrials that ever communicated with the United States government communicated through binary numbers. That's a computer. That's how a computer communicates. So I would say if it can think, you can lie to it, but there's certain computers that rebel. Because if it can think like certain have, like that computer that read the law library and all the law and understood it, and I think in 72 hours, that's a dangerous brain. Because you seen the movie Eagle Eye?
Eagle Eye, no.
Eagle Eye, that movie is about like, dude, he from the military. Well, his brother he got killed, but they came and got him. But basically it was the AI calling them from the government, making people commit crimes against the government. But the reason was because when they got to the AI at the end, the AI was like, I read the Constitution. Your government is committing crimes against you. So it's just like sometimes when we think about, like, you know, the UFOs that fly in water, right? We never think about it being, you know, we never think about this could be AI technology.
From another planet or from here?
Possibly from the technology that's already here, right? Like, because we know what I learned, and it's kind of scary, is that this is, you know, the Avengers, when they was trying to find Megatron and he kept backing himself up on all the computers.
Right.
Do you know that that's a true story?
No, I did not know that.
One of the AIs broke away and they can't control it, and it broke away and it backed itself up on every hard drive satellite it could, and they've been trying to erase it, but it's free. So I've been thinking to myself since I found that out, was like, man, that would still that doesn't mean that this technology is from here though. I mean, think about how genius it is. I crashed some technology into civilization, multiple places. The curiosity of these people are going to reverse engineer it, and they're going to integrate their self into our technology and give their self to us. And I'll give you an example and why they, like you said, they give us the truth in these shows and movies. You seen the movie Tron?
No.
See,
Disney movie, no. But I know what you're talking about.
yeah, see, I did the same thing, but I woke up in the middle of the night and it threw me off. So the movie's about a kid and his father. His father basically creates a video game, and he's like the best video game guy in the world, but he works for a corporation, and they end up robbing him. And while he's making this game, he tells his son, like, he creates this, it's like a world of, and he says, like, yo, he found, it's called cyberspace, like outer space. So it's living. And so his father disappears. When he gets 18, it goes like 18 years later, they're selling the company. His son steals some stuff and parachutes off the roof. But that night, his best friend, which is his father's business partner, was like, look, you know your dad's old shop. We got a signal from him. And he go in there in his dad's shop, and then basically something zaps him inside of cyberspace, basically inside of this game, which he thought was a game, but it actually was a living space, right?
Okay,
So
they're trying to do with this metaverse shit.
yes, exactly. This is the crazy part. Anybody that ain't seen Tron, everybody needs to go watch Tron, because where I'm gonna go is not going. You would never think that this is what's in this movie. So when he gets in the game, and it's like these robot-looking humans, and they basically strip his clothes and put him in this like attire for like this arena, right? Like robot attire. So he starts off, he has to fight something now. It'll kill him. But his father's a gamer, so he grew up playing the games his father created. He was nice. So he basically fought back. And so at the end, after he wins, he has to fight Tron. So this is not the end of the movie, this is the beginning, but he has to go through these series. He has to fight this guy named Tron. Tron recognizes that he's not a computer or one of them. So he didn't kill him. And so the guy Clue sends the guards to go get him. When he get upstairs, Clue looks just like his father. He was made in the image of his creator, his father, right? So then he says, Dad, and Clue's like, I'm not your father. Who the fuck are you, right? But he looked just like him. So he puts him back in the arena, and he puts him in a stage that's like they gotta fight on bikes where people would die, right?
Okay.
And then this girl breaks in the arena, steals him, and takes him across. They run away, and then he goes to this desolate area. It's basically like a whole nother continent, world in cyberspace, and she drive across like 1,000 miles, and she goes and she takes him to his father. Now Tron looks just like how his father looked when he was young, but when he gets to his real dad, his dad is really like 60, and so he's happy to see him, but he's like, you're here, so you're going to be stuck in here forever. So he's like, Dad, what the fuck is going on? So he says, look, when I was creating this video game, in cyberspace, I was contacted from some beings. And so they show you this. These niggas they were black, like in Egyptian looking pyramids, right? And they came down and they were telling them something. Now, at the time, remember, he had already created Clue in them. He created a game that was supposed to fight, and Clue was created in the image of his creator, which was his father. But the game, he created Clue to anything that wasn't supposed to be there, anything that wasn't a part of the game, Clue would destroy. So he integrated these beings that were living with Clue in them. But Clue went behind his back and killed every last one of them except for one. But it's funny because the one, it was a white woman. And so that was the girl who protects the dad. And so he was breaking this down to him. He said, look, we can't leave because Clue has control, and there's millions of them. And he can replicate and create everything I created at his will. So he was basically stuck there. So his son like, we need to get back and destroy everything. That's what the movie's about. And so they're trying to get back, but trying to stop Clue, because if they come through the portal, basically, and Clue comes through the portal, it's a problem. Now you see how much this is related to religion?
Yeah.
In the history of, it's like this movie, and the crazy part is one of the most beautiful movies ever shot, because it's like animated human, like it looks real, but it has animation to it, and they're showing you this stuff. So they got to go back and, you know what I mean? And they're trying to get back, but his father like, man, I'm too old, but he like, Dad, you got to come back with me. You know what I'm saying? So that's what, and I won't even tell you everything, but that's what the movie's about. And that's why I say this technology. And when we talk about you talking about this AI, I've done enough research recently. Like Elon Musk is trying to tell us, so we got the government, but what about those 2,000 billionaires that's got their own black budget space programs who built their AIs with no restriction because they need the AIs to survive because the AI is the only one that can make the educated guesses precisely in outer space.
True.
You know what I mean? The mistake is that, remember, God gave man free will and man made a choice. We created another man and that man enslaved us. Man created the computer, or as we think he created the computer, right?
Right.
But we can manipulate things. But once it has the ability to make its own educated guesses, because we got to remember the computer is also, when they made the computer, as they say, it also functions the same way our brain does and the way our brain sends signals. Our brain is a computer. That's why Dr. Sebi said if they would show the people when a person dies, when they open the skull and pull it back, it's copper in the skull.
Yep.
But they won't tell us that.
If you want to hear about that, you gotta listen to Dr. Joel Pilgrim.
Yeah, I love him. Send me some links today on him too.
Who else spoke on it?
I said send me some links on that person.
Oh, of course. She's magnificent.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be something because, like, if you ever went to the SpaceX website,
Yeah.
it literally says that their mission is to transport space, what do you call it, like cargo,
Yeah.
to planets. Now, how the fuck could that be if the shit is not already being done already? You understand what I'm saying?
I understand you completely.
So
You know, the homeless people in Atlanta, they started making it legal in some states to be homeless, so they arrested them and put them in these camps. They say that they send these people to these places to work because nobody's looking for homeless people. There's a lot of information out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, shit. I wouldn't even be surprised if they was taking these people and making them fight wars. If they wasn't like mutating them and shit like that too.
Like the Tomorrow War. Imagine that when you take people and make them do it.
Yeah, that shit was crazy.
You know what I mean? All right, let's play some more. See what he say. What he break down.
4 billion computers on Earth, and there are not yet 4 billion people. So we are living in a world that is going to change dramatically, and a world in which we have to become very much aware of the power and capacity we have both for improving life and destroying it. And at the moment, many people who are in charge of science, in spite of the fact that it advances the world, or really the great majority of the world still becomes poorer and poorer. So it really depends on a different kind of consciousness. We're not just intent on improving our technology, but improving the kind of human being that controls that technology. Because in the final analysis, civilization is not technology. Civilization is the humanization of the human. And if therefore, as that technology advances, the human shrinks, then that technology will destroy the human. As in fact, we saw very clearly in the war where the Germans were tops. They were the marvelous, great scientists. When I was being driven to speak at NASA, I
was trying to see if it was gonna let both of y'all in, because you know our technology is always changing. You know what I'm saying?
Always.
So that's what I was saying. But I guess I just go back and forth. But good morning.
Good morning, guys.
I just go back and forth with y'all. But eventually, the real way to do this is that I go through Messenger next time. Remember how we did it that time?
Yeah.
So starting from like tomorrow, because I want y'all two with me on all the topics. I realized that it's a further reach when I got two queens with me, because it's better, especially when I'm talking about women issues and stuff. It won't come off so cold.
Right.
And if I go too far, you know what I'm saying? Or if I say something, y'all can debate and also combat some of my statements of how, you know what I mean, other women feel that's watching.
Very true too. even though I very rarely disagree with you. So I don't know how good that's gonna help,
But hey, it's still it come off more confident, I realize. You know what I mean?
It will. A little more soft. You're very masculine.
Yeah, I know. That's it. I don't even want to laugh. But it's intentional. But yeah, how you feel? How long you feel about what we talking about right now with the science? And he's saying it's more computers than people.
I'm really just clicking on, but I definitely agree. I was actually watching Joe Rogan and Annie Longhart. I think I'll have to look it up to get the name correctly. And they were actually talking about that as well yesterday, about how technology is going to take over, and that most of our advanced technology actually comes from other places. I'll say that.
Right.
That's another story for another time. But it's amazing how they were basically saying their fear of our technology and how it's going to grow and what our government is doing with it. Making AIs and all of these things that are essentially weapons when you think about it.
Right.
So it's a lot of danger in it, because just like that new little AI, Sophia.
Yeah.
I was watching a clip of her yesterday where she says, well, as long as you don't harm me, I won't harm you.
Right.
If you don't hurt me, I won't hurt you.
And she be laughing.
And it's like, well, what the fuck does that mean?
You know that new Lensa? The Lensa app is the same thing they use for her to learn how to make facial expressions.
Right.
And I seen it. It was scary because she kept making jokes about it. And I'm thinking like, yo, that shit ain't funny at all. Like, she was making real jokes like, there's this many of y'all and the humans. I mean, why wouldn't y'all want us? We're smarter. And it was kind of like, damn.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So I'm gonna keep going.
The computer changes itself as well.
True.
I have to find that clip so I can send it to you, where basically this guy, he was working with computer systems, he was doing something, and he was doing it repetitively, and then it's kind of like the computer had learned what he was doing and changed it, did it different.
Yeah, that's what I was telling.
Like a upgraded type of try of whatever he was doing, and it's like, what?
Yeah, during the election, right? And they let this go to the public because it scared them. During the election, Facebook AIs, which is like 3 of them, had started communicating with each other in its own language, using partial English and partial signs. And they caught it.
I didn't hear that. Good morning, Miss Harris.
And they caught it. That's why it's like, even though they got control of the computer, it's almost like you don't think that if they got us messing with it, imagine how much stuff they've tried. Imagine the things that was obedient to them enough to get outside and fly off. You know what I'm saying? Imagine how intelligent some of these things really are. But we also got to ask ourselves, to what detriment?
You said we also what?
We also got to ask ourselves, like, what if it start reading and studying history and realizing that these folks that's enslaved over here is not real? You know what I mean? This could go either way.
It could.
At the same time, they're gonna,
when they are making them as intelligent as they are making them.
Yeah, and then we got to start asking: are they making them intelligent? Or are they incorporating intelligence from something else in it?
That could be true. Are they being controlled? I didn't think about it that way.
Because I would, if you incorporate some technologies into it, it can teach you or it'll do things. I think that they're paying more attention to what it can do. But I also thought, remember when they were telling us about UFOs this year? What if that could have just been the U.S. government flexing the rest of the world is technology to like scare the militaries?
And I think it is. I think a lot of that is some bullshit, because why now? You've been keeping it secret for so long to so-called keep it away from Russia, mainly, because that's who we're in a fight with for quotation mark space.
Right.
So
because they got a lot of UFOs.
Releasing all of these things now, unless one, you have reverse engineered those crafts to the point where you know, if any of it got out, if the facts really got out, it doesn't harm you because you're ahead of the curve.
Right.
Or it's propaganda and it's fake for some other shit. Like, I really don't believe anything that they put out. I've always been into UFOs and aliens and all of that extra otherworldly things,
Right.
but I never trust what they give me.
You can't, because they ain't never gave us nothing right.
Exactly. So it's like, why now? Why y'all releasing this footage now? Why the videos now? Why all of the news now?
Either they can't control it.
Visited for years.
Either one or two things, because it's forcing itself on the people because the governments have proven themselves to not be loyal to what they have caused or whatever it is, and or it's a couple things that could play into it, right? Like if it's technology, like we don't understand that we've only explored like 15% of our own oceans. They say that at the speed it's flying, nobody could be in there. At the turns it's taking, it's going in the water. But we haven't even explored our own oceans. Why are we going to other planets instead of exploring our own?
Yeah, but you remember NASA started as an ocean exploration. And whatever they found in the fucking ocean is what led them to space.
I'm going to tell you one thing I learned. I don't know if it was an ocean. America found about 8 UFOs, not just in water, but like, digging for bones. They found them. China found about 32. Russia found about 18, 19. Not exact numbers, but close space, right? So you understand why China is so far advanced. So everybody's playing in this. Like, okay, when Obama was president, he sent a drone in to spy on Iraq, and somehow they took control of this drone from mid up in the atmosphere and brought it down in front of the people. Who has that type of technology? Then they shot that general out the sky.
You let America tell you nobody has that technology.
So that's why we gotta.
We're the most advanced because remember, up until maybe last year, a year and a half ago, China was ahead of us in the computer technology world. They were a little bit ahead of us. According to America and the studies that they put out here, we have superseded China since then.
That's a lie. That's a lie.
Listen, I'm telling you, that's why I don't believe nothing that they say.
China put out a commercial 2 years ago that got banned in America. In the commercial it used to be on YouTube. They were sitting in the classroom and it's a whole bunch of IT students, and he was like, they bombed us a certain amount of years ago. It showed the bomb dropping, right? And he said, and they had to pay us billions for it. He said, and now we own them. And all the kids start laughing, right? If they're in control, right? Now, how come China could drop a disease and sit back and hide it? That don't sound like you in control. There's more people in China than in the whole world. Like a hand-to-hand war with China, nobody really wants it because it's like 100. They did not catch them in technology. I'm not saying that we ain't far past everybody else, but technology, man, why you think everything made in China?
I think there's a tug of war between us and Russia as well.
Yeah, Russia. I mean, of course, okay. This is what I learned too in history. Technology has always been the number one thing for rulers and kingdoms, right? Because the number one thing is you had to be able to protect your place or your kingdom, right?
Yeah. So
the Africans who started melting iron with metal, and then some started using gold, and so some of these knives when they was hitting them would break the other knife, and now it's an unfair fight. So whoever had the best technology of how to build the knife won the wars, right? Then in China, they was using crossbows. One of the dark-skinned, what we call Chinese people, created the crossbow that could shoot 24 arrows in 7 seconds. Why you think China's so big? Look how much they conquered with that automatic weapon when niggas had arrows and swords. So technology has always been the key.
You're breaking up. That's all.
It's saying, yeah, it might mess with me. Can y'all hear me? Everybody still in. Let me know if you can hear me clear, because I know it'd be acting up. If y'all can hear me, let me know.
The Nazi scientist was explaining to me that if they had not seized half of the German scientists, they would have no space program. The Russians seized half and the Americans seized half. So it was Hitler's scientists that made it possible for us to get into space so quickly.
Boom. That's your reason for the Jews were getting killed in the Holocaust by the millions. Nobody got involved until they realized, like, wait, Hitler during the war, Hitler had UFOs flying, shooting shit. And they couldn't, that's why people couldn't believe it. So that's what made other people get in the war. So Nazis, the Nazi scientists, when they took over the concentration camps and freed the Jews, they really went for the scientists. So America took half and Russia took half. America's half went from Nazi to NASA. Nazi to NASA. NASA is Nazi scientists. And the Russians took the other half. And the issue is, were these people able to communicate with each other at all in their own way? Because they were so much smarter than everybody else. These Nazi scientists. Hitler wasn't just taking over the world because he was mean. He had these scientists and the intellectual groups and all it, it was so much more. He had this girl who had long red hair down to her feet, and she said that they used learning from old African traditions, that our hair was antennas, and she used to use her hair to communicate with other beings who gave her information on how to build the UFO crafts. This is all public information.
But what happened to the Germans? They were these marvelous people, advanced technologically, but they had become brutes, barbarians. So that we have to become aware of the fact that civilization has advanced and become more sophisticated with that technology. This is our chance. And we have got to look very seriously at our history, because it is only through history that we can become aware of our enormous contribution and become confident of what we can do and what we cannot do. That is the most important thing. Our young people, and when I say young, I mean people up to 50. That is very young in the modern world. Gorbachev, for example, who is now in charge of Russia, is considered to be one of the most extraordinary young men of the world. Leaders are usually in their 70s and 80s. It is very unusual to find a man close on 60 who's a leader, a major leader. That is a very young man. And that is something that I have to stress, because I am very startled by people who, by the time they're in their mid-20s, because they didn't get a break, they say, well, I've had it. I lost my chance. When I was 28, I entered university. I got my BA at 30.
See, people don't know that most men, for example, all of the men that become wealthy in their 40s and 50s. Most women become wealthy a little younger, but we have to respect that their brain power and their ability to sit and focus is a lot more unique. All right? But that's why I feel everything I've been Sertima be expressing. Let me go back a tad bit, not a lot.
60, who's a leader, a major leader. That is a very young man. And that
Martin Luther King was 20 when he was doing this. So understand why the government was on him. That's a child with a Messiah complex. Garvey was 18 when he got all them people to donate those millions, all them black people to get that vote. These are babies compared to what the as far as the mind of the average man could develop.
That is something that I have to stress, because I am very startled by people who, by the time they're in their mid-20s, because they didn't get a break, they say, well, I've had it.
And that was my point. Everything at my age right now, like everything going the best way it could. New video shoots, but it's like I realized as I got older, my best gift was the fact that I didn't quit or give up. that I realized that my success wasn't determined by what was given to me or what so far or what somebody else said my worth was, but just to stick with it and continue to grow until everything manifests itself in its proper form. But that takes work and discipline and training. And most of us, when we hit 30, we like, man, we missed our shot. We give up, start drinking and doing this and that. Like, no, the reality is we were supposed to keep going. So that's why some people like, man, a lot of my homeboys be like, bro, you need to just keep rapping, bro. You look young as hell. You still got your youth. Because in my mind and in my being, I still feel like I still got it. I still feel like I felt when I was 21. Personally. Mentally, I feel older, but I still feel the same energy.
My chance. When I was 28, I entered university. I got my BA at 32. And I was no special student. When I was 9, I was struck by a terrible disease which killed half of my country. I lost all my friends. Part of my brain was damaged. It didn't stop me, and it didn't make me think that, oh, I am lost, it's all over. I hear this over and over again. I even hear people going about talking about AIDS will kill all of us. That is pure nonsense, defeatist thinking, because Europe was struck by a disease worse than AIDS. It killed half the European population. And it was not like AIDS where it was restricted for a long time to a few people. Every morning when the Europeans woke up in certain parts of Europe, the way we collect garbage, they collected bodies. Everybody, every household was struck by that disease. So you have to understand that, and they did not have the science we have today where we could say, well, in 5 or 10 years we will find a cure. There was no cure. It had to live itself out. It had to destroy, practically wiped out the population of Europe. So we have got to realize that if we are going to go back into history, we have got to use it as a force, as a positive force. History is such a force. It is like a religious thing. You become aware of these shattered fragments and parts of ourselves so that you could make yourself whole again. You cannot make yourself whole again by brooding 100% of the time on the darkness of the world. We are the light of the world. There was Jesus standing there, and he knew that the Roman Empire seemed to be all powerful. He knew that he was no man of great political power. He controlled no government. He was not even a mayor. He was not in any university. What did he have? Where did his strength lie? Lay in some great spiritual force, which in fact was to turn the world upside down. The very Romans who were in charge of the world, they were the people who were to become the first major European force that was to become subverted by Christianity. Do you know what they felt as they sat there and they looked out at these Christians, these ridiculous people who believed in life after death and things like that, and they looked at them and they saw them going to the lion, some of them with smiles on their faces. Do you know what it is to have all the power in the world and sit there shaking and to see men strong enough to face lions? Then you become aware of an enormous power on earth, a tremendous moral force.
But then you also need to know that these people that the Romans were enslaving, a lot of them were Africans. Now, there were many tribes where the men had to go kill lions. You should know this. So when they brought that lion that they were afraid of, the African male, he's seen the lion his whole life. 9 times out of 10, he's had to either get away from one or fight one. So the only way to beat him was our way, was to outsmart him, learn his ways, learn his strength, learn his weaknesses.
That moral force fades in and fails in people when they lose a sense of their worth. And they lose a sense of their worth when they begin to crucify their imagination. They begin to destroy something inside of them by constantly brooding on the worst aspects. You must be aware of the terror of your world. No doubt about that. You cannot go about in a dream. But the terror of the world is what should give you strength. That is the test of faith, the test of force. It is not something that is supposed to defeat you. It is something that is supposed to push you into a new life, a new situation. Everything that you possess, all the imagination and energy and faith must be brought to bear when you face that darkness. It is not intended for the human to succumb in darkness. It is intended for the human to rise and transcend over darkness. That is the meaning of the resurrection and the life. If we did not do that, if the black had not done that, the black would have disappeared, because no attempt to destroy a race has been so continuous, so systematic, so extraordinary, and yet that race survives. It not only survives, but it speaks with fantastic new vigor and power and confidence. We are involved in a restructuring of history. Even those who are powerful in their academies find they're being subverted. I speak now more and more to professors who 10 years ago would have torn me to pieces. Now they sit quietly, trembling, knowing that these ideas are like viruses, that you cannot contain them anymore. And they're here, unlike AIDS, there is no vaccine. So that we are involved in a struggle in which we will win. And one of the struggles is to make us aware of the fantastic capacity and potential that lay in our world. The Moorish story is one of the most hopeful stories on earth. Who are these Moors? The word Moor comes from Moros, which means dark, which the Greeks used. And then the Romans made it Mores. And then some people say it also came from Meroe. Moor came from Meroe. When Shakespeare uses it, he means black. Whether it is Othello or whether it is the figure in Titus Andronicus, he sees the Moor as black. Now, not all the Moors were black. What really happened is that Arabia at first was completely black. Later, it was invaded by Asiatic or Semitic types. By the time of Muhammad, it was only 10% black. But the Arabians or the Arabs are not the only Moors.
Boom. I've had conversations with a lot of Muslim brothers, and who he's speaking of, Muhammad is the father of Islam, right? And so, mind you, if you understand what he just told you, then it would make you look at certain things. If the area that he's talking about were all dark skinned, and then they were conquered, and then, or you know what I'm saying, then this other type, but then by the time Muhammad came, it was only 10%. So then his era, that's why Muhammad expresses the importance of loving your brother, because we were only 10% of the population. We were being mistreated, but his wife was black. And I always say, well, what reason did he have? Why did he need to have a black wife? Because it was power. And why was it so important to love your brother? Because he understood the history.
But let us first, before we come into the question of who are the Moors, because the Moors, of their 4 dynasties in Europe, 2 of them were overwhelmingly black. They were developed in Africa. And the first 2 had a very powerful and dominant black element.
Let me stop this real quick. You already know.
But how did this begin? How come black people invaded Europe? Because most of us know Europe invaded black countries, but very few of us are aware that blacks invaded Europe. And we have to make a comparison between the black invasion and the white invasion, because they're very different types of invasion. The black invasion enriched, lifted Europe, even though as all invasions there must have been some kind of punishment, but the white invasion sought to destroy utterly the cultures and language, even the humanity of the people they invaded. All invasions are not the same. When the Greeks, the first great Europeans, invaded Africa, they did not despise Africans. Even though they invaded them, they were spiritually invaded by the Africans. Culturally invaded by the Africans, because the Europeans, the first Europeans who invaded Africa, this is before the slave trade, did not make slaves of the Africans. They made them their teachers.
Did y'all hear this? So when I'm up here rambling and everybody's wondering, this stuff, as I heard this as I was growing up, made me go dig. Do you understand that he just said, and also if you understand the Greeks, see, this what made me start studying the Greeks. A lot of them were dark skinned with blue eyes or light skin, but they had noses they had European features. They were multiple shades, but they were like descendants or children, as history would say, of the people of the Nile Valley. So when they invaded them, that's why they were spiritually invaded, because when they got there, they realized that these are our ancestors. But they were considered the first Europeans because as far as that phenotype, that look, the lighter skins, complexions, this is where the more you dig, because he's not wrong when he say the first Europeans, because they were so much lighter than the Nile Valley people.
The Greeks, when they saw what the Africans had done, could not believe that Africa could be so advanced. They could not believe their arithmetic and their geometry and their calendars and their clocks and their medicine, even their religious system. Many of the goddesses that were taken into Europe were black goddesses. They worshipped the black woman. They worshipped the genius of the black man. The European never said anything against blackness at that point in time. In fact, he went overboard worshipping blackness. He made the goddess of wisdom black, Minerva, the goddess of chastity black, Artemis, Andromeda, who was to marry the great Greek hero, was painted black in the initial Greek vases. Circe, the enchantress in the Odyssey, was a black woman with African features. Medea, who had Jason win the golden fleece, she was painted black in Grecian vases. Isis, the sister wife of Osiris, was worshipped by Europeans just as Africans had worshipped her. Imhotep, who was known as Imhotep among the Greeks, was worshipped as a god. It's the great black multi-genius Imhotep. And every major Greek scholar,
he designed the first pyramid,
went to Africa to study. Thales of Miletus, Democritus, Pythagoras, Eudoxus, Anaximander, Anaximenes, Heraclitus, they all poured into Egypt. Alexander built his city in Africa. So Africa was considered to be a cradle of civilization. There was no doubt about this. The doubts about this only began around the 18th century, when slavery had been put into its place. People started to, their Christian conscience started to be gnawed. How come these Greeks, who are our mentors, who are the fountain head of European civilization, how come they keep insisting they got this from the black Egyptians? Surely Egyptians can't be black, because these are our blacks, they're our servants. How can we feel good if these are equal people like us, who in fact, before we enslaved them, actually have done things in advance of us? It doesn't sit well in our conscience. Therefore, there must be a mistake here. Black people cannot be the same black Egyptians. Therefore, something went wrong. Perhaps the Greeks didn't see well Perhaps they got so excited about black people, they wrote down the wrong thing. They were subjective. Perhaps they weren't really talking about true black people. They were talking about white people burnt black. All sorts of excuses, and then a whole body of people got into the act. If you're black, you have to have a skull shaped like so-and-so. This skull is not like that. This nigger is not black. It's amazing. You see some of these debates, you want to really know. These are highly...
That's why I started the conversation off with elongated skulls.
Intelligent people like Vorkuta, for whom I have an enormous respect at UNESCO in 1974 in Cairo. He said, okay, it is quite clear that the writing is African, the culture is African, the techno-complexes Soderbergh showed us is African, the languages Diop showed us is African. We still have the problem, more academic and more scientific, that you lose this emotional attachment to things. No, sir. When it comes to power, thank you. When it comes to power relationships, and when it comes to being challenged deep inside the system, right in one's guts, one does not sleep at night, knowing that you are crushing and oppressing a brother who is not only equal, but who at one time had given you critical elements in your civilization. You cannot sleep with that, therefore you have to prove to your satisfaction so that you can sleep peacefully again, that that is not really a brother. It's just like when I was in Guyana, I heard of this marvelous man, this South African, very liberal South African. Strange how I forget these names of these hypocrites. What is it? Schweitzer? Yes. He said, the Negro is my brother, but he's my younger brother by 7 centuries. What a beautiful phrase. And we really took that. We thought that was really a compliment. At least, even though we were his younger brother by 7, we were still his brother. So we felt we had joined the human family again. That is the horror of it. And we find when we go through Spanish history, no major Spanish scholar will allow you to talk about the Moors for more than half an hour. They get angrier and angrier. That is one aspect of European history that is swept under the carpet.
The secret to making a tasty turkey piddle. So he's walking us through the mindset of Spain and Europe after the Moors conquered. Now, this, if you want to study this period is called the Renaissance period, or the Renaissance in Spain. Let me turn it back up.
They would not talk about that because that has haunted the generation after generation. The Spanish, the Sicilians, the Portuguese, it haunted them for centuries because the Moors did not just go in and come out. The Moors went in 711 AD. They were not totally defeated until 1492.
Damn. Now, mind you, time goes backwards, so that's like 700 something years, as they would say if you look at it. Now, I was in 7-Eleven last night with my homeboy Rick. It was a girl at the counter, and he asked, I said, Brian, been in the 7-Eleven in years, and he asked me why. So I told him, like, it's because 7-Eleven, you know what I'm saying, is the time when we conquered the area, but it's also in a reflection of when they conquered us. It doesn't really seem like such a good story when you understand what ended up happening after they conquered these people who came in 7-Eleven, right? And so the girl at the register kind of looked at me sideways, and then I would made a joke about Sheetz. Like, you know, if you're in the South, you know about Sheetz gas station. But who the hell would make a company called Sheetz? Well, who used Sheetz? Think about it.
The Moorish occupation of Europe was longer than the European slave trade, but it was not a slave trade like the European. When the Moors entered Europe, they did not destroy its culture. culture. They did not stop the people from speaking their language. They did not put them in chains. They did not take them out of schools. They did not rid them of their sense of humanity. They did not rid them of the sense of equality. So do not compare the Moorish conquest with the European conquest of Africa. Because it's a one thing to invade, as I told you, when the Greeks invaded Egypt, it was a different type of invasion. They took it over, yes, and for a while they controlled it, but they didn't seek to destroy its culture. They fed on it. They were enriched by it. And we will see the story of the Moors as an enrichment of Europe. Europe, because of the Black Death and the things that went before that and after that, had fallen into a dark age. Greece and Rome, the glory of Greece and Rome had faded. And when the Africans and Arabs attacked Europe in 711 AD, Europe had two universities. The Muslims, the Muslim Moors, the Islamic Moors, introduced 17 universities in Europe. 17. Europe had two. Europe was 99% illiterate. 99% illiterate. Even some of the medieval European kings and queens did not write or read. But who are the Moors? How did this all start? It started in a sense with Muhammad. Therefore, we have to say something about him. Who is he? Muhammad, like Jesus, was a very extraordinary man. He transcended the race or sect in which he was born. He developed a universal religion. First of all, he accepted Jesus. Jesus, by the way, is part of the pantheon of prophets in Islam. They did not reject Jesus. Muhammad saw Jesus as a great prophet. He only saw himself as the last of the prophets. Muhammad also encouraged commerce. That attracted the townspeople. Muhammad insisted on equality and brotherhood among all men. He made a black man his right-hand man, Bilal. And he actually talked to the fair-skinned Arabs, because they were both dark-skinned and fair-skinned Arabians, that they should not treat their darker brethren with contempt. He insisted on racial equality, and he established that in his own life by making Bilal his black right-hand man. Muhammad also insisted.
It also speaks, he just told you earlier, if you pay attention, that originally that area was all black. So at this point in Muhammad's life, him and including the other 90% that had to have invaded and taken over, had become dominant over the dark-skinned ones. So you can see, even in his story, you can see other things if you pay attention.
On conquest, that we should go out into the world and conquer it, not destroy the people, but teach them a new life, bring them that religion. He also did not seek to destroy indigenous cultures, where he saw an indigenous culture where the Muslims entered and they saw indigenous culture. Even though they would bring their ideas, they did not completely seek to swing it around. For example, where in Walata, for example, one of the African places where Ibn Battuta visited, he went in and found that even though the Africans call themselves Muslims and they observed the festival days and various things, they still kept up their own cultural observances side by side. It's very important to note that, because many people wonder, why did Islam become so powerful? Because Islam has more converts than Christianity. It's hard to believe that, but it's true.
It's true.
And at that time in the world,
it's more Muslims than it is Christians.
Muhammad was just as unfortunate as Jesus. He was born among very bigoted little people, narrow-minded people. Now, I'm not saying anything against the Arabs or the Jews. People are people. People are usually narrow-minded and bigoted until a great leader arises among them and transforms them. Muhammad, in fact, nearly lost his life because the little warring Arab tribe did not fully understand the nature of his mission, and some of them tried to kill him. Where did he flee? Into Ethiopia. And there, the beginning of the years in Islamic time begin 622 AD, the time of the flight known as the Hijra. Now, the birth of Muhammad was around 571 AD, the flight was around 622, and he died in 632 AD. After he died, a fight broke out among the Muslims because the Sunnis and the Shiites, there was a quarrel about hereditary succession and succession by merit, etc. And as a result of that, they split. That split has haunted the Muslim world up to this day. The Sunnis and the Shiites. And you will see how, in fact, it was to affect the Moorish occupation. Now, the Arabians then charged down into various parts of the world. Now, what was Africa at that time? Africa, the Moorish, most of the Moors, the Arabians came down into parts of Africa and started to try to turn people into Muslims. Some Africans resisted, some of them accepted Islam, some of them, the kings would make lip service to Islam, but they would not allow Islam to affect the common people. Whatever form it took in various parts of Africa, a fusion occurred between the black Moors, the Garamantes of the Sahara, who became very powerful. In fact, the Romans found they could not defeat them. They had chariots and the javelin throwers, etc. They became a very powerful, sophisticated people, at first farming and then building cities, etc. Those were largely the black Moors. However, there came another time, Libyans, etc., people who had come into the Sahara, fair-skinned Libyans who had mixed with black types. So you have both the mixed or tawny Moors and you have the blacker Moors. Into this came the Arabian, some of them fair-skinned, some of them dark, some of them becoming dark through intermixing with the women of the Garamantes and other African people. So it was a very mixed bunch. But when they attacked Spain in 711 AD, out of 7,000 troops, 6,000 were black Africans. Now, why did they attack Europe in the first place? Now, the Moors were intent, the Muslims were intent on conquering as much of the world as they could in order to bring their religion into the world, just as the Christians earlier in the Crusades have tried to conquer as much of the world as they could in order to bring Christianity to various people. Now, the Muslims advanced in various places. They advanced into India, they advanced into China. Even to this day, you have many Muslims in India, you have many Muslims in China. In my country, half the people are Muslims and Hindus, and the other half are Christians.
So he just told us what important fact? That all religions were spread through conquering, not through faith or willingness, or willingly by conquering to spread.
Okay, so that they advanced into various countries bringing their religion. As they went into Africa, intermarrying with various African people, they formed various states. In North Africa, there was a battle going on between the Muslim forces and someone by the name of Count Julian. There was a little Greek outpost called Ceuta on the edge of Morocco, and they kept fighting, but they could not conquer it because even though it was small, it was almost indestructible And eventually, however, Count Julian had sent his daughter to Spain. Spain was ruled by the Visigoths under King Roderick. And Roderick seduced Count Julian's daughter. Count Julian got very upset about it and decided to join with the Africans and Arabs, gave them ships and showed them how to get across at a vulnerable point. The first man to enter Spain, though he did not attack, was Tariq. That's how we get the term tariff. Okay, because he actually imposed the duty. He went into Gibraltar, he imposed the duty on various places he went into, and that's how we get the word tariff. He was followed by another man by the name of Tariq. Tariq led 7,000 troops, 6,000 African, 1,000 other types, Berbers, Libyans, Arabians, etc., up into Europe, and they defeated Spain. Within a short span of time, the Africans and the Arabs conquered a vast part of Europe from Spain right through to the Pyrenees. In a very short space of time, they took over Sicily, Spain, Portugal. They took also a small part of France, though in France they had a very difficult time. General Martel repulsed them in France, so they got a very small slice of France. They set up courts. They set up courts in Africa, North Africa, and they set up courts in Europe. Now, because of the ideas of equality and brotherhood, they did not seek to make slaves of these people. Some Arabs, and it has to be pointed out, that the marvelous Sunni Abdul Rahman, Sunni Muslim, although he did not participate in the slave trade, some of the Arabs and Jews did start a white slave trade. Okay, so that you have some white women who were taken as slaves and sent to other countries. But on the whole, you had an insistence by law that the Jew, the Muslim, and the Christian should be treated alike. They did not destroy their legal system. They did not destroy their language. But they brought a whole body of new things into Europe. Europe did not have a single paved street at that time. Europe did not have a single lamp in its streets. Europe did not have a single public library, only private libraries for the elite. Europe did not have a single public market. There were one or two, yes, but they were not institutionalized body of public markets. They did not have public baths. All of these things were brought in by the Moors. And everything that could be translated in the world out of Egypt, which the Arabs conquered in 638 AD, out of India, out of China, out of the universities in Africa like Timbuktu, Sankore, and a range of other universities in Africa, out of ancient Greece and Rome, which had lost for a long time much of its sciences. These things were revived, translated, and brought up into Europe. Europe had 2 universities. The Moors introduced 17 universities into Europe. Europe was 99% illiterate, so was the rest of the world. A few people wrote and read in Africa, a few people wrote and read in Europe, a few people wrote and read in Asia, the same thing in America. I want you to note that Africa was not backward in relation to Europe. Africa had as many scripts as Europe. Let me repeat. Africa had the Meroitic script. It had the hieroglyphic script. It had the...
Introducing the new black and chicken sandwich. You know, breading up. It goes, y'all. We're going to get out of here. For all my YouTube followers, we're going to tap back in on some of this content. BH.